episode. This is an epic episode because we have Brian Comte, who is actually across the pond, if you will. And I'll let you introduce yourself with your background and everything, but we're gonna get into it with a real operator talking about combat medic stuff. We're gonna talk about the psychology of taking that skill set that the government has spent millions on, setting you up for success overseas, and how we can apply that to a civilian application. And we'll talk about some shooting too, some long range shooting. So welcome, Brian.
Hey, it's good to be here. I'm Brian Comte. Yeah, I'm overseas, and this is my CHU. We're calling it Containerized Housing Unit. And my military career kind of looks like this. I did 23 years of active duty. My first half of my career, I was an airborne ranger. I was an infantryman. And I served in 2nd and 3rd Ranger battalions and a couple infantry divisions for very short periods of time, probably a year each. And then I went to special forces selection, and they're like, what MOS you want? And I was like, anything but commo, because I don't get it. And then they're like, okay, good, we're going to make you an 18 Delta. And
wait, what's commo? What did you say, commo?
Oh, communications, a communications sergeant. Yeah, dots and dashes. I don't get it. Morse code was part of the training.
Oh.
And then, computers, electronics. I'm a knee bone connected to the thigh bone kind of guy. That makes sense to me. And so, yeah, I really, I'm a simple dude when it comes to all this tactical stuff. Super simple. And what I mean by that is like it really cooks down to shoot, move, and communicate, and medicine. Whether I'm a 12-man team running around in the woods doing the wild thing, or driving around the desert, or whatever we're doing, or it's a 35-man infantry platoon. It's it's just bigger. And then if I'm a helicopter guy with a gun sticking out the doors, it's the same thing. They got to know how to shoot, move, and communicate, and then do medicine. And so it's, if you're driving around the world in a tank, it's the same thing.
Here, yeah. The thing about it here is it's applicable in any environment, and no one knows it better than your extreme environment. And I feel ill prepared for some of the situations. I think a lot of people over here feel ill prepared for some of the situations we're finding ourselves in America, whether it be riots or active shooters or just out on the country property shooting guns and something goes wrong. We have to be able to respond as great as you to save someone in that golden hour, and aren't sufficiently trained. And I never understood the seriousness of that. I'm not a person functioning in your environment at all by any means, in that extreme, hostile, and dangerous environment. But sometimes it can get pretty serious pretty quick, even on a country property or in a schoolroom or downtown Portland. In the case of Portland, the chaos going on. And God bless you and your skill set and your commanding presence in a situation of extreme seriousness when something goes wrong. Anyway, so I'm excited to have you here, because I think Brian and I have talked a lot about some of the basics that you need to be able to be a superhero like you over here, but you're doing it over there. But what could we apply to what you're doing over there here? That was a long way to get to.
I think it's one of the first things you need to know what to do. I mean, let's start right here with medicine and trauma management. Like, hey, now I'm starting to work with tools that have the potential of killing or injuring myself or injuring somebody, or they're designed to do that. So we might want to know how to protect ourselves in a medical way from that.
Right. And when you start a class, Brian's also an amazing instructor. And when we start any class on a live fire range, we talk about safety. Hands down, that's the first thing we talk about. And the biggest thing is, the biggest fear I think beginner shooters have is, how am I going to hurt myself with, like you said, this defense weapon or this tool? How am I going to hurt myself? How do I not hurt myself? And then after we go through that, holster it, finger long and straight, all those things. Then the next thing is, okay, what if something, for whatever reason goes wrong and someone gets hurt? How do we navigate that? And usually there's someone, hopefully, with a skill set somewhat remotely like yours, but that's not always the case on the range.
Yeah, and I mean, this stuff has been super applicable to me just driving around the country. I drive from one side to all the way to from California all the way to Florida to see my kids, and some of my first medical experiences were somebody's rolled themselves in their car,
Really?
and come like, dun 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 dun. What do we do? And you're like,
what happened? Did you have to get in that?
Yeah, I actually had a guy, he flipped his car right outside of Denver between Fort Carson, Colorado, and Denver. We come pulling up, and this guy, he's on the other side of the interstate coming this way, and he's upside down. And I stick my head into the cab of his car, and he's unconscious, but his arm is stuck out the back window of this little pickup truck, and the truck is laying on his arm. And then I get in there, I cut his belt out, and all of a sudden he starts to come awake. And this vehicle is laying on his arm like this. It's out the back window. I didn't even know how he pulled that one off, but he was. And I'm like, I get out of the vehicle and I go, hey, we got to lift this vehicle up so he can get out. And this one soul was like, oh no, don't move him. Don't move the patient. Don't move the vehicle. I'm like, wait a minute, person. This dude is coming out and we need to go ahead and let him out. And so me and a couple other dudes, we pushed up on this little car. He pulls his arm out. Right about then, the EMS shows up. This guy's so nonchalant. He's putting on his gloves and he's like, all right, BSI, scene is safe. And he gets to busy. But this poor dude, man, he was wreathing in pain because his arm had been crushed. And that's like one of my first experiences. I didn't know anything about medicine.
Really? And now, if you could go back, what would, now knowing what you know now, what would you have done different in that reaction?
I would have made sure the vehicle wasn't going to burn up in fire. Maybe have a fire extinguisher right there, but I'd still would cut his seatbelt out and helped him out because, he was moving.
Yeah.
He's moving around. So if his neck was broken, we couldn't help him from the angle we were at. So once we lifted that vehicle out, he was extricated from the vehicle. And that was the key piece. And
so then you're like, oh, maybe I'll get some.
It was crazy.
Wow.
And but so that's kind of it. I mean, with all these mass shootings and all this craziness going on in the world, it's always good to know this stuff.
What are the top three things? What are the top three things you feel like people are missing right now with this landscape? Like what are the top three?
Well, what I would say is I don't need an aid bag to do medicine. And then I would say, hey, let's look at these things. I would say, hey, man, I don't know much. First of all, hey, are we secure? All right, and is that bad guy still shooting at us, or is this guy still driving around acting like a crazy person trying to run us over, or is the building falling down still because of an earthquake? We want to not add more casualties to the mix. That being said, I call that security. Security is never negotiable. It always has to happen. So I'm not going to talk about that much. That's like take an E-face out, pull 360-degree security with your weapons, and let me do medicine. Or, like the building's still falling down. This is not the time to run in and grab patients until the building's done falling down.
Right. And
You know, it's kind of,
I think about
you
that a
don't
lot
need
because I'm in
more.
Oregon. Well, you're on the West Coast too. We're waiting for the big one, the earthquake. So I'm always like, do I move? Do I stay? What do I do? Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you're in, get out of the building.
What about a log house? Is a log house secure? I keep thinking.
I think you're in pretty good shape with that, you know. But then what I do is we talk about march. You know, in the Army, learned how to march. I marched a lot. I marched from here to there and everywhere, you know, and so, and I can remember how to spell it. So I can think about march.
I'm a big whiteboard person, so
Me too, man.
I respect the whiteboard. I love it.
Hey, man. So if we're going to do anything with a patient and we got, you know, bullets flying around or something that whatever's going on, at first, this is more like combat trauma management stuff. And this was taught to me by an operator one day. And he's like, hey, first thing you're going to do is stop the red stuff from coming out.
And like I said, I'm living sometimes with people that are on Coumadin. My relative here is on Coumadin, and that's a bleed out that can happen so quickly. And I'm in a remote location.
Absolutely.
It terrifies me.
Absolutely. She's out there pulling a lawnmower up a hill.
Yep.
And she slips her foot underneath the lawnmower.
Yep.
That's always a good one in Nebraska.
Yeah.
You know, or those big combines. Those are amputators, man. They'll just knock an arm off like, and so what are we going to do about it? Industrial accidents are huge.
Right.
Big machines. First and foremost thing is we're going to stop the bleeding, stop the red stuff from coming out.
So do I need a medical kit to do that? And I got to run to my car and do I just start grabbing seats?
Everybody's like, oh my God, I can't stop the red stuff from coming out.
I wouldn't even, yeah. What is it? What do we do?
All right. What we're going to do first is we're going to talk about a couple pressure points. Like right here is called your brachial artery. So say I'm in a machete fight or I got my hand stuck in the trash disposal, who knows?
Yeah,
we never know. But all of a sudden I got this meat puppet and it's bleedy, or I got in a machete fight and my hands are missing and I see blood going pss, pss, pss. First thing I can do is I can either just grab it and squeeze it, or I'm working on somebody else. What I can do is just put 2 fingers against the brachial artery right here. And that's one of the first pressure points. It works really good. And then if I can see exactly where that blood's coming out, I would place a tourniquet right there. You're like, oh my God, I need X, Y, and Z to make a tourniquet. Well, I got a bell. I have these pre-made tourniquets. They're pretty good. Yeah. This one's called a cat, you know. Combat application tourniquet. It's pretty good.
And you know my little kit. This is a Bear Independent kit. I can't remember you played with this. And
yeah, and I liked what was in there. So if I'm in a machete fight and I lost my hand and I see that, oh shit, there's a bleeder right there. All right. I can take all the slack out. This is the key piece.
Yep.
Take all the slack out first. And then start tightening this bad mamma jamma down. It's going to hurt. And if you're putting it on somebody else, they're going to be like, ow, that hurts. All right.
Oh, yeah, I've heard.
And then you just twist it until the blood quits shooting out. All right. So I was in a machete fight, got half my hand cut off. And so I take this thing down, crank till the right red flow of blood stops.
Let's say you shoot a lot of people. I'm on the range a lot, drawing from a holster. Someone zips up their leg, you know, and you end up with an injury on a leg. Same thing.
Yeah. And when in doubt, I'm going to go ahead and give you the when in doubt. So you're talking about legs now. Okay. Your next pressure point. Remember this pressure point. And oh God, holding on to it. And then somebody throwing a tourniquet on for you. But this one's really important. This one right here. And this pressure point is, here's the pubic symphysis. Everybody has one. Okay. And that's that bone right above your business. Okay. And then you have this other bone. It's called your iliac crest. Halfway in between it is your femoral artery. So if I push down on that femoral artery, it's going to occlude blood to the lower extremity. Well, my buddy's getting his tourniquet out, and we're going to throw a tourniquet on you. If you're a heavy bleeder, if it's a bleeder like, wow, you've got that artery, your chances of getting that artery are pretty, it's not that good, but boy, you nailed it. Or you shot yourself in the pelvis. Oof, no good.
Yeah.
All right. So these are these two pressure points. I want you to know about these first. These two. And then, like, say I was playing with large firecrackers, the industrial kind, and one of these bad mamma jammas went off in my hand.
Yeah.
And now this whole thing is a mess. I don't know where the bleedings come from, because it looks like a dog got a hold of it and shook it. And so what I can do, and this goes for upper extremities and lower extremities, you have two bones here, you got one bone here. You got two bones in your lower legs, one bone here. When in doubt, we call it go high and tight. We used to have bad haircuts in the Ranger Regiment called the high and tight.
Yeah.
And then you take all that slack out, and then crank.
Yep.
All right, as high and tight as you possibly can. Orient the lower extremity, high and tight. The first one doesn't do it, go with two. On the lower extremities, because our legs are so big. If one doesn't stop the red stuff from shooting out, get the second one on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we watched, the horror of these dynamics in Vegas, that so many people bled out in Vegas. You might be in a situation like an earthquake where there's nobody coming anytime soon. Or if you're in an active shooter situation, that the trauma team that can't come in before they clear the building with security. So you might be laying next to someone that bleeds out. So knowing this is so critical. And I think, like you said, most likely you're not going to have the perfect little tourniquet on you, so you're going to have to use other things, belt, anything to just tighten it up. All right.
So that's what I want to talk about a little bit next, because like I met one of the guys who was there at the Wynn.
Oh, you mean at the Wynn or at Mandalay Bay?
Yes, at the hotel in Las Vegas with the active shooter.
Right.
And he's a really cool dude. And he's driving on a fire engine, and he heard automatic gunfire. Ka-ka-cow, ka-ka-cow. He goes, oh, automatic gunfire. And he starts, because he's a fireman, he goes right for where the trouble is.
Right.
And he sees this wave of humanity coming his way. And then some things to think about. He goes, some things he said is like, hey, the ambulance, the first time it made a pass, it had no med supplies after the first pass. And I was like, okay, what can we do about that? Because they dumped all their med supplies on the first patient.
Wow.
And so it was a mass cow situation. They were overwhelmed logistically right away.
Right.
So what he did, so I was like, okay, so what can we do about that? So let's put these thoughts in people's heads ahead of time. Okay, everybody get behind the big red fire engine. It stops bullets. Get everybody behind it, and get everybody behind this big red engine thing, because it'll stop bullets.
What an idea.
And then, or get behind the building or something. Get out of the way. Okay, hey, you run over to the Wynn and ask the front desk for all their sheets. Clean ones, hopefully. But then they'll come out with a stack of folded sheets and go, here you go. Go on out, and you throw them down. What are you going to do with them? You just start ripping them into about 4-inch strips by however long a king size sheet is, or queen, or whatever it is.
Right, you are not kidding. This guy means this. So whoever's listening to this, I've seen this guy collect sheets. He means business. This is it sounds so simple, but I'm gonna
totally did see me do that.
I know you like he's like a sheet burglar, like it's like the Hamburglar, but you're like the sheet burglar. And he means it. So the most basic thing I learned from you when we had that first class was that sheets are such a simple item to have close by and grab on hand. Anyway, go on.
I love it. And you saw me freaking scarfing up sheets.
Yeah.
I still got half of that bag, and I use them for all my training, because if you can do bandages with just a ripped up sheet, then the rest of it's easy when we give you all this package stuff and crazy stuff like that. So, hey, I was talking to this guy from Berkeley. It's like, man, I wish I could get some of this 4-inch strip, the length of a sheet, and I wish I could get it autoclaved and vacuum sealed. And he's like, say that again. And he wrote it down. And then about 2 months later, he sends me a box of autoclaved, sterilized sheets made in America.
Oh,
and let's open one of these up. He's pretty cool dude, man.
Oh,
but
awesome.
You don't need it. You could just rip up a sheet.
Yeah, but it's nice if someone else can do it for him too. But that's awesome.
All right, so basically what this is a sheet.
I love it.
And this was sterile up till a second ago. But what I can do with this, the problem with gunshot wounds. All right, we talked about where we can apply tourniquets, and go tourniquets early. Don't worry, man, you're not going to lose your leg because of that tourniquet. You're going to lose your life because of bleeding out first. So get the tourniquet on there first, and we'll figure it out later. All right. But sometimes we get shot in these places where we can't put tourniquets. Here,
right.
Here, below the SAT plate or freaking bulletproof plate,
right,
on our body armor. Bullets get into our pelvis. Man, these will bleed you out quick. 3 minutes, they're done for.
3 minutes.
So it takes 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Pay attention, folks.
You can literally bleed out in 3 minutes from pelvic injury or a femoral artery or a subclavian. My buddy, he got an AK round entered through a scapula and exited right here. And in the movies they always go, oh, he got shot in the shoulder. That's not bad. No, that's really bad.
Yeah.
Because you have a thing under here called a subclavian artery, and it's under a lot of PSI. All right. So what can we do about that? Well, pack that wound. And I mean, not just a little packing it. We really pack that wound, because here we go. We got a big hole. And down here in the bottom of that hole is an artery. That's an artery. And it's under a lot of PSI.
Which stands for?
Pounds per square inch, a lot of pressure. I know it's not measured in PSI here, but it's, inches of mercury and blah, blah, blah. But I don't even know what that is most of the time. So, but just realize that you're going to have a lot of pressure. This artery is going to be pumping blood into this void right here. So I wanted to make sure you understand, I'm going to take this and I'm going to pack it all the way down here and build a pressure dressing. It's basically pressure is what's stopping the blood flow. All the way from here. We're building it up, and then we perk it out. The other way to do this, which is the ineffective way, is there's a big old pool of blood here. And then I put my bandage right here all floppy.
Yeah. And
that does nothing.
Nothing.
You're building a pressure dressing at the source of the bleed and working our way out. And it's really important that people know this.
Yep.
All right. This is super important, because what we're doing is it's not a tampon. All right. This is a pressure dressing built from the inside out. All right. We don't want to just soak up blood.
So we're just packing it in. And we're just talking about sheets right now. We're not talking about
nothing, no magic pixie fairy dust.
Yeah, we're just talking sheets.
We talked about packing wounds, and these non-compressibles. Hey, what happens if you get a skate, an ice skate to the neck, and all of a sudden you got and your carotid artery is bleeding? Stick your finger in the hole. If you don't do it, have somebody else do it for you. So if you see some active bleeding, and that goes with any of these, that was one of my best saves. Was like, this guy was a sprinkler system right in front of me, multiple gunshot wounds, and I was just like, and right about then, man, pull it out. Right then, I'm just going to go ahead and hold pressure in those two locations until I get to the hospital. But where this happened was in a hospital, and I had these two huge arterial bleeds, and I had my fingers in both holes, and it just was almost reflex. And then the anesthesiologist comes in and goes, "Hey, you just popped the patient, Brian." And I go, "What does that mean?" He goes, "We're putting a mask on you. We're going to the OR. All right, we're gonna do surgery on this guy right here, right now." Okay, cool. But so we stop the red stuff. Always massive hemorrhage, stop the red stuff from coming out. Last but not least, here's one way to use this. All you do is make a girth hitch, put it over the bleeder.
Brilliant.
Tie one way and tie the other way. And each time I go around, this thing gets tighter.
I love it.
And it's the same bandage.
I love it.
I like the fact that we can use one bandage to get a lot of work done. And I gotta thank my buddy out in Berkeley, man. This guy's a good dude, man. He attends my long range precision class. He's super smart, and built his own rifle. And he's one of those guys. He's a super cool dude.
And what's cool about you is we're actually, you brought up long range. You are I'm not going to say dates or times because this is a podcast and it's kind of evergreen, but Brian's also one of our Red Frog, or going to be doing some training, tactical training. Well, so not only are you awesome at the medic stuff, but you're an amazing long range instructor. Do you do tactical rifle too also?
Yeah, man. The small unit tactics piece, you know, some people are better with the carbine and better with the pistol and the transition and all that stuff. There's people that are really, really good at that. Me, the maneuvering and the fire maneuver piece is what I'm really good at.
Okay.
Tying it all together, you know, standing there in front of a target and doing my transitions. Got it. But I would say my strength is in the actual tactics of maneuvering and out maneuvering and out thinking the bad guy, because a lot of people think this is a muscle man game, and no, it's a thinking man's game. And so we gotta think it. Yeah, it's a thinking event. It's not, because that bullet doesn't care how many push-ups I did this morning. It just doesn't. And so
tactics.
This.
Tactical. Well, I can't wait until you're back on this side of the pond and we can get you in front of some people and we'll do some of those classes. But for now, thank you for getting us through the as much information as we've managed to pack in just a half an hour. And we'll continue on the next podcast with Brian, where we'll get into what's coming next, the A in March, which is...
Yeah, we'll talk about airways.
We'll talk about airways. So thank you. Yeah, and until we talk again here in the next week.
Thank you.
Brian.
It's awesome seeing you guys. You all take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.